Last year was horrendous.
Good evening, fellow citizens
Good
of
evening.
Peabody and surrounding areas. This is another evening with Bill and Russ, and I'm Bill. This is
I'm
Russ.
Russ.
And we have with us tonight Jerry Robito. Jerry is basically from Methuen at one time, and he's running for sheriff. So we've got a little list of things that Jerry would like to elaborate on, and maybe a few things that he won't elaborate on. In other words, he won't be talking about the two Irishmen that went into the bar down the street, because that was this morning. How did you make out down there?
Not well, not well.
Were they open?
They closed. They opened a little later. I was too early.
Okay. Don't kick me again or I'll kick you. Jerry, it's good to have you. I understand you've got a... Why don't you give your public a little resume of
Okay.
what you're up to, and we'll get into
Very good. Okay, my name obviously is Jerry Robito. I'm a candidate for sheriff of Essex County. I started my career in 1975. In 1989, the Lawrence Jail and Salem Jail closed. I worked in the Lawrence Jail. We merged and we moved to the Middleton House of Correction. I went there and I became a captain. I was in charge of recreation in Middleton. About 2 years later, I transferred down to the Lawrence CAC, which is better known as the farm. I ran work release down there, putting inmates out to work in the community. I would go to different companies and talk to them about what a great program it is to utilize our inmates in their facilities. I did that for 2 years. Sheriff Cousins gave me a promotion. I became the shift commander of the second shift in 2002. In 2004, the sheriff gave me another promotion, made me the director of housing. The director of housing is in charge of all the areas where the inmates live, as well as the infirmary. So I ran that for 4 years. In 2009, I maxed out and I retired. Recently, in the last 5 years, I worked security part-time for the IRS. So that's basically the start and end of my career.
Where was the IRS, in Boston?
It's in Andover. I work in the Andover facility, yes.
Right.
Yes, yes.
What route is that on?
It's off of 93, Route 93.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. I've been by there many times. I have relatives living in Chelmsford. So,
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jerry, now you're had enough of arrests, I presume.
Yes.
These were all restful jobs that you had.
Yep. Well, you know, I'll tell you, people ask me, how did you work 34 years at the jail and last that long? And the answer is simple. I love my job. And clearly I love my job because I decided to come out of retirement and give it a run for sheriff. Unfortunately, in my career, the sheriff's position is an elected position. So as a result of it being an elected position, you'll get state reps, clerks of courts, lawyers, chiefs of police. You get a multitude of different people that decide they want to run for sheriff. I personally have never seen anyone work their way up through the ranks in my department in my 34 years that's actually earned the position of sheriff. And it's funny, I always ask this question, why is it that you'll see a chief of police, he wasn't a state rep, he wasn't a city clerk, he wasn't whatever, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, he worked his way up through the ranks. Being a police chief is a very serious position. Well, especially in corrections, it's a very serious position. To walk through the doors for the first time as sheriff and not having any knowledge of the job, it's not an easy task. To walk through the doors, you have to rely on people to help you and guide you. And unfortunately, if you don't have the knowledge of the job, you don't know if you're being led down the right road with whoever's running the jail. Mm-hmm. You're at their mercy. Unlike myself, I know how a jail should run. I know the people that work in the jail. I know the positions. Throughout my career, I can't tell you how many times I've had inmates in my office on a regular basis. And they would say, they'd be sitting down and I'd say, what's going on? Well, I'm getting out of work. I'm getting out of jail Saturday, Jerry. And I'd say, well, what are you so upset about? Well, I have no place to go. And I said, you have no place to go? No, I have no place to go, so I'll probably be back shortly thereafter. then I'd have a situation, and obviously we have a major crisis in the country. It's the opiate addiction. Very, very serious problem that exists today. I've had inmates that come to jail, go through the programs, the drug and alcohol programs. Same thing with them, end of their career, kicked out the door, see you later, good luck. They're back 6 months later. Okay, what the problem I think that goes on today is that in the jails, inmates come to jail and they have 3 TVs on the unit. They have 1 TV there is for English, 1 TV there for Spanish, and 1 TV there for sports. So basically the majority of the inmates, they sit around and watch TV all day and they chalk up one more day closer to getting out. I'm a firm believer, because I ran work release and I understand that these different companies I dealt with, they were looking for people that were marketable, people that had a trade. So I would love to institute trades back into the jail, teaching kids carpentry, electrical, plumbing, automotive. So now when they get out of jail, first off, we can try to line up these different companies to get them jobs once they get out. Because as it stands now, inmates go to jail and they get their GED. To be honest, if you have a GED and you just did 2 years in jail and you walk into a store and say, I'd like to fill out an application, well, what are your qualifications? Well, I have a GED, but I've been in jail for 2 years.
Yes. Where were you the last 2 years?
So he's not marketable.
Yeah.
So trades are very important. Not only are they important for that, but many years ago down the farm, we had a automotive department. And we had inmates working in there with a trained automotive, teaching the kids the trade. We'd be able to take, say, cruisers from the Lawrence Police Department, Methuen Police Department, whatever city and town would say, hey, listen, I want to get it fixed. They'd bring it down to the CAC in Lawrence. The inmates would learn how to fix the vehicles. They'd fix the vehicles free of charge other than labor. The city would pay the labor. Pay the materials, not the labor,
right,
which is very costly. So that's one of the things that we need to incorporate back, which I would incorporate back into it. Same thing with carpentry. They used to, years and years ago when I was a kid, I'd drive by the farm and they'd have picnic tables. They'd sell picnic tables to people. They'd drive by, you can buy a picnic table there for far less than you'd buy in a store. They'd take the money, they'd put it back into the program for the jail, and it'd be to help continue the program so these inmates can continue working and learning the trades. So those are some of the things that I would do if I was sheriff of Essex County.
Why did they stop it?
Well, like I said before, when a sheriff comes in, there is no connections there. No connections other than I'm a politician, I'm running the jail. He don't have that mental connection and understanding of the wants and needs of an inmate because he's never been there. If you've never been there, you don't understand. You have to actually work inside to understand what needs to be done to try to rehabilitate these kids and get them back into society. So unfortunately, it's because of the lack of experience when they get into the position.
Can you explain who's in the jail system? Because as we were talking earlier before the program came on, about it's a state-run system, but major offenders in the Middleton and Lawrence jail?
Okay.
Are the murderers?
That's a good question. Good question.
How do we divvy out the population?
Okay, here's how it works. Throughout Essex County, an inmate, a person, let's say, commits a crime. He kills someone. Goes to court. Court gives him a no bail, sends him to Middleton, waiting trial. So they have a multitude of murderers in Essex County waiting to be sentenced.
Okay.
Once they're sentenced, then they'll go upstate to Walpole. And then from Walpole, they'll go wherever they need to go. But these people would actually sit in the jail for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Yeah. So we have some serious characters. The normal Essex County inmate, the maximum sentence is 2.5 years.
Okay.
So if you're a county inmate and you commit a crime in Peabody and you get committed to Middleton, you can get up to 2 years, 2.5 years in jail.
Now, what crime would that typically be? Breaking and entering?
Breaking and entering. It could be a domestic with your spouse. It could be
not a capital crime.
Not a capital crime.
Okay.
Correct.
All
Correct.
right. And now, I know you haven't been working there for a while, but in the population mix, do you know how many pending and versus are?
Pretrial versus sentence?
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers, but the pretrial outweigh the sentence inmates.
Okay.
Which is a big problem. There's overcrowding. It's so overcrowded that they're actually sending pretrial inmates to a pre-release center, which I'm totally against. But they're sending these so if, an inmate gets arrested today, goes to Middleton tomorrow, and let's just say he doesn't have a serious crime. To make room in the jail, they'll end up sending him to the farm. The way it used to work is when you came to Middleton and you got sentenced, the farm was a merit thing. You had to earn it. You had to do well in the jail, be very constructive. Your conduct had to be right. At some point, say 5, 3, 6 months into your sentence, you'd get the opportunity to go to the farm. Well, unfortunately, because of the pretrial versus sentence situation, the numbers, it's hard to do.
Now, where is the farm for those?
The farm is on Marston Street in Lawrence. It's, for anyone who knows Commonwealth Motors, it's right aside of Commonwealth Motors.
And what do they do at the farm?
At the farm, they have inmates that are, they come from Middleton, they'll go into the annex, and the first thing they'll do is they'll go out on work crews on the highways.
So I've seen them there before.
So you'll see them out there picking.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first step. While they're doing that, they could be out there working on the highways anywhere from a week to 6 months working on the highways. At some point after that, they would get the opportunity to get a job in the community on work release.
Okay.
And they would work at this particular place until their sentence expired.
But they'd be dropped off by the guards?
They would be dropped off by the guards at work and picked up from the guards and be brought back. When I ran work release, I used to go to these different companies and I'd say, listen, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck while this guy's in jail. He's going to show up every day. We're going to pick him up every day, and he's going to give you 100%. Because they're in jail. They're not doing drugs in jail. They're in programs, so they're following the rules and regulations. I said, however, when they get out of jail, I can't guarantee that they're going to make it past a year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it may be. Which brings up another point. It's very important. Years ago, the primary goal for a sheriff's department was care, custody, and control. Those are the major points. As time evolved, things have changing. Now we have to get into recovery and aftercare. You can't expect to take an inmate that was a drug addict in jail, let him finish his sentence and kick him out the door and say, see you later. There has to be an aftercare program in place.
Is there one now?
They haven't a one now, but they don't have a. They have an OCC in Lawrence that they go to, okay? But they need an extensive one because the numbers of inmates that are getting out far exceeds what they're able to take care of. My personal feeling is they've got a 911 center up there in Middleton. Okay, I personally would like to make that a aftercare program, number one. I'd like to make it a drop-off center for drug addicts like the chief of police in Gloucester's doing. He promotes drug addicts that decide they want to get help and they want to stop doing drugs to come to the jail or to the police department, drop their drugs off, and then go into a program. I think that the sheriff's department should work hand in hand with police departments and do the same thing because these inmates were in Middleton, so they know the system. So we'd like to make it affordable for them to come to Middleton, drop their drugs off. We, in turn, get them involved in a program. So that's something I would like to do.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you a few questions.
I have 100
Jerry.
of them.
Any communication with Essex Tech? Essex Tech,
high school?
Essex Aggie. They have a lot of work up there for auto body people and that type of thing.
Yep.
Is there any way you could have some of these people go into the prison and work with the inmates?
I would assume that if the sheriff decided he wanted to go in that direction, he could. I know I would.
Yeah.
But I can't speak for Sheriff Cousins.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Well, that's the high school kids you want to put.
No, I'm not talking about the kids themselves.
you're talking about the instructors?
I'm talking about the supervisors
Right.
that work there.
Yeah. Well, I think in my experiences working in work release, I think there's a number of qualified automobile repair people, carpentry, electricians that would love the opportunity to get a job working at the jail teaching, like in a vocational school. I'm sure there's a number of people, but the thing is you'd have to go out and if they put an ad in the paper, there'd be people knocking the doors down.
Well, you have to have a budget to support it too.
Which is a valid point.
Where do you get this money for running the sheriff's office right now? Where does it come out of?
Well, they have a budget. The sheriff is the budget.
part of the state budget? Or?
Yeah, the state budget, they have a state budget, and it's all, they're allocated, let's see here. The annual budget is $53,795,
53 million.
I'm sorry, $53,795,000 a year. And it's just a question of, the sheriff decides what direction that money goes. Obviously, you got to pay for salary for your employees, so that's part of it. Then you have to look what direction does he, in one particular case, he decided he wanted to open up a 911 center. There's a lot of money going into that
I was
program.
going to ask about the 911
Yeah.
center in a minute. but go
Okay,
ahead.
we can touch on that again, but yeah, so it's all a matter of what your priorities are if you're the sheriff, where that money goes. Clearly, I wasn't the sheriff, so I've never sat in his office and
Right.
discussed finance.
So-
But I think it's something that can be looked into, and with the right people working in the right positions, I'm sure we can find a way. Another way that they have monies is, and a lot of people don't know this, inmates, they have access to use phones, pay phones. Well, the sheriff's department gets a percentage of the phone, of the monies that's made through the phone company, and that money goes back into, or should be going back into, for inmates. So I again, because I was never the sheriff, I don't know the exact number, but I know it's a substantial amount of money, and that money can go into the direction of carpentry, of plumbing, electricity, and so forth and so on. So there's grants. There's a multitude of grants out there, because the bottom line is the governor is very much in favor of doing what he can to try to get these kids rehabbed and stay out of jail. So I'm sure if we made a proposal, I made a proposal that we want to start making these kids more marketable for when they get out on the street, I'm sure that's something that he would consider as a good option, or a possible option.
Absolutely.
Now, you talked about the 911 center.
Yes, sir.
This is the telephone company?
Yes. No.
No.
Dispatch center, the
This is the
regional dispatch.
emergency phone
Yes.
system for anybody that wants to make use of it, like myself?
No. What it is a city or town, when this 911 center started, and I don't think I'm that far off on my numbers, in order to maintain a grant for that particular 911 center, he had to maintain 16 cities and towns to be on board. So say the city of Peabody, if the mayor decided he wanted to get involved with the 911 center, he'd have to pay X amount of money to the sheriff's department, and in turn, they would provide the services for the town of city of Peabody,
Right.
which would be for ambulance calls, emergency calls, all 911 calls. Unfortunately, the success rate with the 911 center didn't meet the expectations.
Right.
And they probably only have 3 to 4 cities and towns on board, which unfortunately, it appears that it's failing.
Yeah, I read in the paper something about confusions of where to send the.
One of the biggest
ambulance,
problems, correct.
Because, there's so many common names of Main Street. Well, it's Main Street Peabody, Main Street Salem, Main Street,
They've sent
Andover.
ambulances to the right city, wrong street, right street, wrong city. In each and every city in Essex County, you have people that work for the police departments that know the geographical setup.
Right.
So when I say, my son, he fell down, it's right aside of the Richardson's ice cream, they know right away. They don't have to go into a map and find where Richardson's ice cream, which takes up valuable minutes, and unfortunately, in some cases, it turned out to be disastrous.
Yeah. No, I don't think Peabody's on that.
No, they're not.
No, I didn't
they're
think
not.
so.
No.
They're not.
Well, we dial 911 in Peabody.
Right, but we don't go to the. I think it was called
response is-
You go to your own.
The
Yes.
response was from Beverly for a long time,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And you run into problems, exactly what you're talking
Right.
about.
Right.
The people answering the phone don't know, and they'll send somebody out, and
Right.
they never show up.
If you're on the other end of a phone
Yeah.
and you're the one making the call,
Yeah.
you're not looking for, hold on, please.
Well,
Yeah.
years ago, and I don't think how long ago it was, that they said that because the problem came up with the internet, the wireless phones, because they didn't have a trackable address. But if I called up from my house phone, the good old Verizon,
Right.
they knew where that phone was.
Right.
But if I was on a wireless phone, there was no, unless
Yeah.
they did a GPS
Right.
to figure out.
no
They
tracking
didn't
of
know.
the call.
They don't have
Right.
tracking.
Yeah.
Right.
didn't have
Well,
that.
it's out there. There's documentation. been in the Salem News, it's been in several
Right.
newspapers, and it's actually, Topsfield just recently put an article in the paper, a vote of no confidence, and it listed its reasons why.
Yeah.
And it all pertained to the service.
Yeah, is it growing pains or is it,
I think we're past the growing pains,
Okay.
as been indicated. We're well past the growing pains.
okay.
Um,
Great idea, but it didn't work. Let's go on, move
exactly,
on.
exactly.
Those things happen.
Well, it could work. It could work
Oh,
if
listen.
everybody gave it some effort to
Well,
make
that's-
it work.
You gotta keep things simple for a lot of people, Bill.
Hmm?
You have to keep things simple for a lot of people, Bill.
Yeah, but you can't be too simple, Russ.
Well, if it's
I
in
mean,
Peabody, it's Peabody.
If I
it's
got
Salem,
somebody
it's Salem.
breaking into my house, I don't
You
need
want
a-
the Peabody
I
police
don't
to
need
show
a-
up, not the
go
Saugus
get
police.
a book
Well, you know,
to see what's going on.
let's face it. We've got to give these different mayors and these different cities and towns credit that they know, they're knowledgeable. So obviously, there's a reason why they're not jumping on board.
Right,
And I guess that's the bottom line.
yeah. Yeah,
So that's
true.
something that we have to look into ourselves
Sure.
to find out why it's
Sure.
not happening.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if
Or
I'm
when
just gonna
you
get off
get
the
to be
subject a little bit.
sheriff, Jerry,
I'm sorry?
when you get to be sheriff,
Yep.
you can start this with the local police departments
Absolutely.
to get them more in tune to the 21st century. That's what I call
Right,
it,
right,
really.
right.
I mean, it's a shame to let it sit there and waste when everybody can take advantage of it, and they don't.
Well,
they
sometimes I
need
think you gotta
people
keep
to
things
push it.
small to make them work efficiently.
Pardon, Russ?
Sometimes you need to keep it small to keep it efficient.
Well, that's
Big government is not always the
You
answer,
can only
Bill.
keep it small if you can keep your cities and towns small.
We st-
Peabody is growing by leaps and bounds, and so
No,
is
it's
every-
not getting any bigger,
Middleton
Bill.
is
There's only
growing by
13
leaps
square
and bounds.
miles here, Bill.
Pardon?
There's only 13 square miles in the city of Peabody. We're not getting any
There's
bigger.
17 square
Well,
miles, Russ. Don't
Hasn't changed.
Don't start
Hasn't
throwing
changed in
figures
50
at me
years.
now.
Let me ask the question. I don't know if you said. How long is the term for sheriff?
It's term for sheriff is 6 years.
Okay, 6 years.
You know, it's funny. I personally, working in this profession for 34 years, I firmly believe, and it may be a difficult thing to do, I firmly believe, even though I'm running for sheriff, I think you need to take the politics out of the position. Okay, it's because in the position of sheriff, you're obviously, you have to raise money. Okay,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I've seen it 1,000 times over the years. People, they donate money to the sheriff's department. I'm sure it doesn't just happen only on the sheriff's department. I'm sure it happens elsewhere, where people donate and they get rewarded for it. Okay, I believe just like in the state, the position is it's a position that they hire a person for, an appointed, should I say, position versus an elected position. I mean, there's been you've had some sheriffs over the years that got themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
And it appears that once they get past the 6th year into the 12th year, that's when those problems start to happen. I don't know if it's because they become comfortable. I don't know what it is, but I'm in favor of
It's politics.
politics. Yeah. And you know, it's for. We're going to call.
Got a
coming in.
call.
We have a call? Yes, caller.
Yes, hello. I was wondering if I could ask the candidate a question, please.
Go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Robito, you mentioned the CAC in Lawrence.
Yes.
Now, are those inmates there, are they real violent criminals, or are they people that can go out in the street and work and help out with different cities?
Well, here's what I can tell you. There's a transition that unfortunately has taken place where at one time the only people that can go there are people that were nonviolent, didn't have any domestics against them, no open restraining orders, and unfortunately it's kind of changed. In fact, you know, I brought this. It's kind of this is actually what kind of prompted me to run for sheriff. I'll try to explain it. They had an inmate that got arrested in Lynn. Okay, he got arrested in Lynn, went to court. The judge put a no bail on this person. Now, what a no bail means is he doesn't want this person getting out in the street because he's a danger to society. Okay?
Yeah, I got that.
This particular person was transferred to the farm the next day. This is the article. So I'm not making it up. It's like when I saw that, I said, this is gross negligence. Something like this just never, ever should have happened. Okay, so to answer your question, I think that they're more lenient on who goes to the farm. I can't explain why, but unfortunately, this particular case proves that they're more lenient on who they send to the farm.
Is that because the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing? I mean, because the judge said no bail.
Right. Well, let me tell you what happened when I worked at the jail. When I worked at the jail, they had a board, a farm board, we called it. Okay? And the farm board consisted of 2 or 3 people that would interview the inmate for the farm. Sitting on the right was a gentleman that was in security investigations. He would have the inmate's folder in his hand. And on the folder, when a guy has no bail, across here it says no bail, highlighted in yellow.
Big stamp on it.
Okay. So based on what I know, this obviously isn't in place anymore in the jail.
Yeah.
So now this is they for some reason this no longer exists because you don't even have to be able to see that well to see a yellow highlighted no bail.
Would that come on from the judge? I mean, would the clerk at the courts
Yes.
put a no bail on
Yes.
the piece of paper?
Yes.
So it's not the sheriff's
No.
issue.
No.
It's back to the courthouse,
The-
perhaps.
No. The court puts on the paper no bail, so when he gets to us,
Yeah.
we clearly see that he's in there for no bail.
Okay.
So now the responsibility is on the sheriff's department
Okay.
to make sure this guy stays in jail.
Was that on the paperwork?
Oh yeah.
So the sheriff's office made
An error.
an error.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Versus the courthouse didn't put the stamp
Oh
on
no
it.
no. It's on. That's one thing about that. That's very clear.
All right.
You know, it's just. I guess it's one of those things.
Are we still? Are you
Okay.
still? Okay.
Thank you, caller.
Another question.
Go right ahead.
You mentioned that you have work crews that go out doing trash, picking trash, and all that out of the CAC. So you must have some inmates that can go out in the streets and work.
Yep. You mean down the farm? Well, yeah. I would assume that the inmates they're putting out at the farm are sentenced inmates that don't have domestic violence on their records, assault and battery on their records. I've been out of the jail for a few years, but I mean, seeing something like this with this guy down the farm, I'm not really sure who's on down the farm anymore in regards to the severity of their charges.
Okay, but because I've seen inmates in different cities helping with different things with, because all the state budgets are so tight right now. It's tough to get, all the employees out of the city to do everything in the city. Would you reach out to the mayors if you did have inmates that might be able to come and work for them? Or can they reach out to you if you become sheriff?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would have a website, okay? The website I would have would not only be for the different cities and towns, but it would also be for the residents. Like, for example, if you live next to an abandoned yard and it's littered, you have the ability to go on the website and say, my name is Tom Smith. I live at 76 Salem Road, and right aside of me is a vacant building. Is it possible that one of your crews can come out? Because the way it stands now is if the sheriff has a relationship with a given mayor or city councilman or someone, and he gets a call, he's going to get right on it.
Yep.
But unfortunately, if you don't know a city councilman and you don't know the mayor, you may not be able to get your yard cleaned up. But I would make it affordable so you can do that.
Well, you really would have to have a communication link with the local police to say, I'm going to have a crew down on Linfield Street in Peabody tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Before you send the crew out.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I would. I'm not sure how they do it now, but I mean, if they're going to do their tours of the city, it might make sense to take a tour by that work site just to make sure things are going the way they should.
Now, do you leave it, in those crews there, is there a guard there? Because I know on the highway,
Yep.
I'll see the sheriff's van
Yep.
parked along the highway,
Yep.
and as the inmates are working the detail
Yep.
to clean up the
Yep.
highway.
Yep.
So if somebody was down at my lot next door, there'd be a guard or two with...
There'd be one guard. There'd be one guard with him. Yes, there'd be
Okay.
one guard with him.
And
he
what
has his-
kind of a weapon is he carrying?
You know, that's an interesting question you just asked. Unfortunately, they don't allow them to carry weapons.
No
which
weapon.
I'm totally against. If you have a uniformed officer in a marked vehicle, all you got to do is read the newspapers and look at the news of what's been happening throughout the country. And if it's gross negligence to not allow an officer with a work crew to not have a weapon on his side. The old saying is, I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it.
Right.
And these guys are trained, so there's no reason why they shouldn't have a weapon.
Now, when they're in the jail, do they have weapons?
No, no weapons in the jail.
Except for,
This.
well, I was going to say, would they have an armory in there?
They have an army, correct.
There you
If something escalated to a point, they have a response team that would come rushing into the unit.
Okay.
If it escalated beyond that, then they have tear gas and everything else in the central control, yes.
What's a response team consist of?
Response team is when they have roll call, they take an officer from each unit and they'll say, you're on response tonight, you're on response tonight, you're on response. So the units know that this guy may have to respond to a fight. So in total, there'll be 6 officers leaving each different unit to respond to the fight. And they rotate it. I don't know if they do it weekly or daily, but when I ran it, we would rotate it weekly. Ideally, we like to put people on a response team that are interested in being on a response team. And I would also try to stay away from having a guy in his 50s or 60s on a response team.
Now, do they carry batons or no?
No batons.
No batons.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No mace, no weapons, no the batons, nothing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robito. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the
Thank
call.
you.
Good
caller.
luck. And do you have a website?
Yes, I do. Jerry Robito for Sheriff at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good luck.
Thank you for the call.
Jerry, I got a question. Thank you
Sure.
for the call. I got a question. Years ago, in my youth, I always remember constables.
Yep.
And something about civil process.
Yes.
They'd serve a whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
Can you explain that to me?
Okay, the
Explain to
Sheriff's
audience?
Department has a civil process department, okay? And what they do is, if you're going to sue someone,
Okay,
you would get a hold of the civil process office and say, I want to serve a notice, a habeas corpus, to have this person come to court.
Oh, that sounds good.
To go to court. And they would serve they serve notices for that. They do evictions. They do I lost my.
How about bill collecting?
What's that?
Bill collecting?
What they would do is like if a person has a gas shut off, they'd lock up their gas meters because they're not paying their bills. There's probably, I never worked in the civil process, but that's basically what they do. They also do arrests as well.
Now, would I call the sheriff's department?
You would call the sheriff's department and they would put you through to the civil process.
Oh, I have to pay for that?
No, you'd call them, there's a recording, and the recording would say, if you're looking for this department, press 1.
Okay, but when I get to serve.
Oh yeah, you'd have to pay, yes.
Do you know what the fees were?
The fee, I'm not sure the fee.
Does it go into the operation of the sheriff's department?
It goes back into the operation of the civil process department.
Okay,
that
so-
goes back into that.
So the constable would be paid for that service?
Well, the constable's different, okay? Constable.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, constable is someone outside of the sheriff's department that
right.
goes to a given city or town and says, I want to be a constable. He applies to get a constable license,
Okay.
and he may know lawyers. So he'll contact 4 or 5 different lawyers and say, hey, listen, I can do your eviction, or I can do your serve a paper for you. So
Okay, but he does the same thing.
he
though?
does the same thing
Okay.
that the sheriff's department does.
Okay, but he necessarily doesn't work for the sheriff's department.
No,
Oh.
no.
Now, how does he get paid?
He gets paid from the person. So if you're gonna ask
From
him
the
to,
lawyer?
yeah, well, he get paid from the lawyer,
Yeah.
or from the person that's actually having you serve the paper
Very
to
good.
someone to go to court.
Very good.
Yeah,
So that money does not go to the sheriff's
it
department.
goes to the constable. His portion of it is
Any
his.
constables out there that would like to call in and ask a question of the sheriff?
The
future
sheriff, how about that?
Wow,
Forward thinking, Bob.
I love that positive thinking.
Well, that's what we're here
That's
for.
right, exactly
right.
right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. You're right.
Yeah. The pleasure is all mine. It doesn't cost me anything. Tonight. Tonight.
Are you having any fundraisers? We might go through that.
You know, it's funny you say that. I unlike most of the people, when Sheriff Cousins made an announcement that he was not going to seek re-election, I had already pulled papers 2 years ago, so I was actually
Really?
prepared
Oh, wow.
to run against him. Nothing against him personally,
Right. Well-
but it's just something I thought I wanted to get involved
Absolutely,
in.
personal.
Right. So I felt, being that I worked inside the jail and I look at the jail through a different set of eyes. I felt that I could do a good job if I had the opportunity. So I've had 3 fundraisers so far. I have one in Beverly in April. I got one coming up in Peabody in June, and I have a golf tournament in June in Methuen. So yes, I have fundraisers.
Where is it going to be in Peabody?
I have
Peabody
Chet
show.
Zelnick, the AOH. I think we're looking at the AOH.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that is.
I was reading in the Salem News, I don't know when it came out, but they mentioned some North Shore names that have been floating around for running for the sheriff's office. Who has taken out papers so far?
Well, there's
we know?
rumor and there's official. Officially, the only one I know of is an Ann Manning from Peabody.
Yeah, we know her.
Counselor
at large, by the way.
Okay.
Ann Martin is Ann Martin, Manning
Yeah,
Martin.
yes.
That's the same person.
Yeah, she is. There's a lawyer from Gloucester. There's a superintendent from Middleton that is either is going to or did pull papers.
Right.
There's a ex-state trooper from Lynn, and I just heard today that the chief of police in Lynn pulled papers.
Ooh.
So there's actually 4 out of Lynn.
What I read in the Salem News, they said, and I'll just read what it said, floated around were those of State Rep Paul Tucker, Democrat from Salem.
Yep.
No.
He's in the legislature.
But he was the city's former police
Yes,
chief.
but is he running for sheriff?
I heard. I'm sorry.
That was the question, because here he was, the police chief in Salem, just got elected to the state legislature, and is he or isn't he going to be hopping on the bandwagon for sheriff? I don't know.
Through my sources,
Well,
I heard that he's not. He was going to, but he backed out.
Yeah.
let's go a step further. What's the pay of a sheriff?
I believe it's 157.
157,000
a year, in that vicinity.
Now, what happens if you do get elected? You're retired, state employee retiree, right?
Yep.
So you get elected.
Yep.
You go off the pension plan.
I freeze my pension.
Okay.
I freeze my pension, and the interesting thing is, I freeze my pension. Let's say I go 1 term. I go back to my old pension.
That's my. Those people out there. That's what I was going to ask.
I go
Okay.
back to my old pension.
you-
I was the deputy superintendent, and I go back to my deputy superintendent pay.
Okay, so you're not going to be able to
No, capitalize
capitalize on that.
No.
You know, pull a bulger.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
At least one thing.
Yeah.
You know, nothing personal.
No,
But,
no,
you know,
no. I can totally relate to that.
You know?
And like I said, as I said earlier, this is the most important part. I have a wonderful retirement. I have a wonderful part-time job. It's not about the money. So that's not, I'm not looking for the sheriff for a stepping stone for something else or looking for the extra money. I just, obviously, we can all use money.
Absolutely.
But when I retire and I go back to my regular retirement, I'm thoroughly satisfied with that.
Okay.
Now, how many years is the current sheriff in?
20 years.
20 years.
20 years as sheriff.
So he started.
He was
back in
appointed first by the
19
governor,
In 96.
and then he was elected and re-elected thereafter.
Right, right.
Very good.
Now, you said you had maxed out on your pension.
Yes.
So is that because you were Tier 4? I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
I understand a little bit about
Okay,
that.
to max out, there's a formula.
Right.
The formula is 32 years and 55 years old.
Okay.
Okay, I had 34 years in at 55 years old, so I didn't have the age, so I went an extra 2 years
Okay.
to get the maximum of 80%.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Yeah. But I thought the police officers were able to retire early because of the
Health.
type of jobs that they held.
Well, I think we're in the same boat. I think.
Yeah, I think you
yeah,
are, but
yeah.
I remember reading in the
Yeah.
newspapers
Yeah.
something about that, because it was like different levels of
Group 4, it's called.
Yeah, thank you.
Group
Yeah,
4.
Group 4.
And another thing I might add is officers can leave at 20 years, regardless of their age, but they'll get 50% of their pay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, and my son actually works for the Sheriff's Department. And I told him, I said, listen, you want to go the long haul, because if you leave at 50% of your pay, the cost of living changes every year.
Yes, it
and,
does.
And what today may be comfortable may not be comfortable 2-3 years down the line.
This is the senior corner. We know
Well,
about
now
those
that's
things.
it. I didn't know you were an accountant as well.
Now the
But it pays to know what you're going to be financially faced with
Sure.
when you do retire.
Correct.
And Have you retired from the?
I'll tell you, you know, it's funny. When I retired, I went to Boston, and I grossed $300 more a month because I don't pay state tax anymore.
I know.
So actually, I made more money retiring.
Now, why don't you pay taxes?
It's a law. State law.
It's a state law.
They don't pay income
What
taxes.
does the state law say? I want to get in on
Well,
it.
I pay taxes, but I don't pay the state tax.
Okay.
No state income
Why?
tax on
Because
state
you're
pensions.
a state.
State employee.
Yeah.
But now, when it comes time for Social Security, I get penalized.
I know.
So I have a number of years of Social Security, but I get penalized because the law.
That goes back to the double dipping.
Yes, double
Right,
dip, right,
yes,
correct.
Yes, I understand that. Do we have halfway houses in the county?
Yes, we do. We have halfway houses. We have 2 in Lawrence. We have, I believe, 1 in Saugus, 1 in Lynn. We have 2 or 3 in Salisbury.
How big? What's the population in a typical halfway house?
Now, that's just Essex County.
Yes, just Essex County. I can't speak for any other county. I think they vary. It's usually between 8 inmates. The one in Lawrence, the ladder house, they call it. I think that goes up to like 20 inmates.
Is that in a residential area or is it?
It's actually what, the one in Lawrence?
Anyone.
And well, unfortunately, yes, they are.
Okay. Now, do they get visitors there?
They get visitors, and the other thing that I got to say it the way it is, they don't have any supervisors there. They don't have any professional staff. At one point, they had correctional officers working at these halfway houses to oversee it and make sure everything was being done properly.
So at 11 o'clock at night, they're all by themselves?
All by themselves.
And unless somebody called the local police,
That's correct.
They have locks on the doors.
You know, it's all about priorities.
Yeah.
My priority is care, custody, control, and safety
Yeah.
of the residents of any city and town. So I would have someone.
now do they have a?
You mean to tell me the officer would be in with 3 or 4 patients without any protection
Well, as
in a halfway house?
there's no officer there now. The inmates are there by themselves now.
They are.
They have a key bill. They go in, they
So
go out.
how are they supervised?
They're not.
They're not supervised.
The way they say they do it is they do random checks. Now, inmates are the smartest guys in the world.
They got plenty of time
Okay,
to
they
think
get
about
plenty
it.
of time to think about it.
Yep.
They know the deal. They know the schemes. So if a guy shows up on a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock, they know he won't be back till maybe Thursday or Friday. They've actually had a situation where an officer went in to a halfway house, walked into the inmate's room, opened the door in the closet, and there was a female, his girlfriend, was standing in the closet. I don't condone that. I'm against that.
Now, does the hopefully the local police knows the situation at the halfway house?
The local police, I can't speak for the outside of, because I'm from Lawrence. I can speak for Lawrence. On several occasions, the Lawrence police have to go to these halfway houses because it happens to be in an extremely high drug-infested area, which
Yeah,
is
I
not
would think
conducive
no.
for rehabilitation.
It shouldn't be a halfway house
No,
there.
it shouldn't. In fact, a young lady I knew, she's a state parole officer. Excuse me. I saw her at Christmas time, and she said, "What's going on with that halfway house in Lawrence?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I'm a state parole officer. I had to pull my inmates out of there because they're doing drugs in that place." I said, "I don't run the jail. I can't help you."
Oh, boy. You're not making me comfortable here, Jerry.
So what you've got is a dangerous job, really.
Yes.
No.
And you feel you're adequately protected by your peers?
Presently,
Yeah.
no.
What would you do to increase the protection for that?
Well, for starters, at the halfway
People
houses.
like yourself that are constantly taunting danger
Yeah. Well, I mean,
without causing it yourself.
yeah. Well, I mean, for starters, with the halfway houses, there'd be 24-hour correctional officers working there.
Why don't they have
But you can't control that.
You can if you're the sheriff.
Yeah.
Why don't they?
How has our sheriff done over the years?
As far as overall?
The job.
Well, here's what I can say about the sheriff. He's been very good to me. He gave me 2 promotions. He's been very good to me. I've been very happy. But we're back to what we said before. If you get a sheriff that comes in that knows nothing about a jail, the best thing he can do is be receptive toward advice from his
staff,
peers.
yeah.
Unfortunately, Sheriff Cousins is not that type of person. I wish I could say he was. He's not. He wants to do things the way he wants to. So when you have a halfway house with no supervision,
I'm gonna have to ask you a question here. What is a halfway house
But
by
he
definition?
is in charge, though.
yes, he is.
Yeah, totally in charge.
And you know what? He's been very fortunate. Nothing serious has happened yet.
Who does he answer to?
The governor.
The governor.
The governor.
This is
Direct
to
line
the
to
voters.
the governor? Direct line to the governor?
I don't know the relationship. I know that the governor has a lot under his hat. I don't think that he.
That's why he's the governor.
Yeah, I don't think that he visits the jails throughout the state as often. Maybe he has someone else that does. I'm not sure. But all I know is that the sheriff answers to the governor.
What is a halfway house then, for definition?
Okay.
Because I'm kind of confused.
Okay,
here.
good question. All right, halfway house is when an inmate goes to Middleton. We'll start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Inmate goes to Middleton, gets a year in jail. Does 6 months in Middleton, does very well, gets rewarded, gets to the farm.
Not
okay.
to be confused with the halfway house.
No, the farm, totally different.
Right.
Now, as a result of inmates going to jail every day, we got to make room for more inmates. So now we got to take these inmates and we got to put them somewhere. There's two options. The old option was an inmate at the farm would have the option of going to his house on a bracelet.
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay, he was going to go to his house on a bracelet. He'd work. Well, let me back up. I would send someone down to his house to see if it's a good environment for him to live. See if it's conducive for rehabilitation.
Right.
If it is, he would bracelet it out of his house.
Okay.
Now, when he works,
Can you stay there for 1 minute?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That bracelet is an expense, I understand.
Yes,
Who's paying for that expense?
the sheriff pays for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I understood that private individual would have to pay for the bracelet.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, I'm not
aware of that.
Believe me, I don't know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
So what happens is now, when he works, let's say he works at McDonald's. Let's say he makes $175 a week. When he lives home, that whole $175 goes into an account for him. The way it's set up now is when an inmate is sent to a halfway house, he's paying the owner of the halfway house $125 a week to live there.
So somebody who operates a halfway house,
Correct.
not the sheriff's department.
No.
So it's a private enterprise.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Fill them up, Bill. Put them down Bay Street, Peabody.
I'm not filling them up.
We'll put all those
I
apartments
think
up above.
that's a very expensive living.
if you have
$125
well, you think
a
about
month.
it. If you own a halfway house
Yeah,
and you have 8 inmates living there at $125 a week
yeah,
times 8 times 4 weeks, it's a lot of money.
not worth it, Joey.
Now, keep in mind, these inmates, that doesn't even count the food. So now they're not getting food there. So now they have to have their families bring them food to the halfway houses. Versus if they lived home, the food would be in the house,
Mom and Dad would feed
would
them.
feed them, and their whole paycheck would be going into their account.
What do you do when you have somebody that's on, say, dialysis, and they
Medical.
have to be at the dialysis? I'm sure you don't have any machines.
You
At
know,
the-
they have a pretty good infirmary up there.
They
and they have all
do?
the equipment. Yes, yes.
For dialysis?
Yes, yes.
When I'm on dialysis.
Okay,
That's
well,
why
I
asked
stand
the
corrected.
question.
If you're on dialysis now, you have to go to the hospital for that, right?
No.
They'll
we
take
go
you
to
to
the
your treatment
clinic.
center.
Okay, you go to clinic. Well, they would do the same. They transport inmates, these people
Yes, I know.
that have that type of situation.
We used to have them come in chains.
Right. They'd go to the hospitals
Yeah.
for the dialysis.
Yeah.
They'd probably live in the infirmary.
Yeah.
Okay, but they'd be taken out on a regular basis. Whatever the requirements are, if it's every day, they
Yeah.
take them every day.
Yeah.
But they would be transported. They wouldn't neglect the fact that they need their
Yeah,
dialysis.
but you still have that procedure.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't let anybody sit in a,
Okay, 10 minutes.
sit in a cell or something like that and
With
pay
that
no
type-
attention
Oh,
to
no,
them?
no. With that type of problem?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the sheriff's job's more than a 40-hour-week job. Are you ready to do that?
Yes, I am. Again, we're back to the original thing. I love my job. My entire career is corrections. Never veered off into anything other than corrections.
Okay.
I love it. I'm passionate. It's not a stepping stone for me. I love the job.
Okay.
So what does the sheriff oversee? One prison or?
He oversees the
you call them a prison?
correctional facility.
Correctional
Yeah,
facility?
correctional facility.
We only have one in Essex County.
We have one male facility, yes,
In Essex County.
in Essex County.
A female?
We have one female,
Salisbury?
but that one there is more like a pre-release, like the farm.
Okay.
Okay, and in the back of the building is the pre-release type setup for females. In the front of the building is like a halfway house. So they would graduate from the pre-release center to the front of the building to the halfway house.
Do they have female guards there? Or
They have female and male guards there as well.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And they have the same setup there, where in the front of the building, they pay $125 a week to live there.
Oh.
And Jerry, you've been at it for 34 years?
34 years, sir.
Very good.
Yes. And loved every minute of it.
Pardon?
Loved every minute of it.
Good. What did you love most about it? The food?
No. Wasn't the food, no.
How is the food there?
You know, the food is privatized, and back in the Lawrence Shield, the correctional officers used to make the food. We'd have a guy that was a cook, be a correctional officer, he made the food. The food was better back then. We privatized, they brought in Aramark, that's the company.
Right.
And it's all about portion control.
Yeah.
Portion control, and you're not getting prime rib. You're getting portion control.
Prime
and
liver.
they try to keep the costs down, so the food isn't what it used to be when.
Can Mom bring a cake with a star in it or something? You know, a pizza?
no.
Can they order a pizza?
You know, it's funny. Back in the Lawrence Shield, they could.
Yeah.
That stopped in Milton, and rightfully so. It should have stopped.
Yeah.
Where
Do
is
they
this
do they
young fellow
exercise?
today? Where is this young fellow today?
Still running around.
He's back in jail. They got him. They arrested him the next day.
Is that right? Yeah.
Now, do the inmates exercise? How's that routine? I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
it's on
You
TV,
know,
I see all these full-bodied inmates.
well, you know, there's two trains of thought. Someone on the outside that never worked in a jail before or understands would say they shouldn't work out. If you're a correctional officer and they work out, they're getting out of their frustrations out of them.
Right.
We're tiring them out, making them calm. So correctional officers are in favor. Now, they're not in favor of heavy-duty, hardcore lifting weights.
Right.
But we very much promote basketball, running inside in the facility, volleyball, things like that. So I promote that type of thing in a correctional environment because we can clearly see it de-escalates their energy level.
All right. Now, I know, what was that movie I saw that Burt Reynolds was an old quarterback and
Oh, yeah.
Mark
Nine
Sandler.
yards.
Mark Sandler was in there.
Yeah.
And the warden, if you will, of the prison had them compete against the guards in a football game.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that at the...
No, you know what's funny? Years ago in the Lawrence Shield, because we go way back, we actually took inmates out of the jail. That's how. Back in the 70s, there was no training. There really wasn't any safety procedures in place. We basically took inmates out of the jail. We took them to a place across the street from the Lawrence Shield, which was called the Plains Community Center, to fight. To fight against other jails.
Oh.
To fight against other people.
Okay.
And that all stopped too.
Wow.
Yeah, as we transition at the time, we learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah.
Paul Newman. you
Yes.
know? Yeah. It was the good old days.
Wow.
You don't have ball and chains anymore.
No, they don't have balls and chains
No
anymore.
chain gangs. You know? That's interesting. Phil, you got anything to say about the senior corner? The senior center?
Pardon?
The senior
Yeah,
center.
but I have another question.
Oh, okay.
What would you do to try and keep inmates from returning to jail?
Well, as I said earlier, what I would do is I would have make an inmate marketable. You got to make an inmate marketable for when he gets out of jail. So he needs to learn a trade. That's number one. Number two, when he gets a trade and he gets a job and he's released from jail, he needs to continue into a program and showing up 2 or 3 days a week for his drug and alcohol problems. So he's got to keep in touch with the jail and or a support system outside on the street.
I have to ask this question here.
Did you tell me you worked at Salem Jail before it
Lawrence
closed?
Jail.
Huh?
The Lawrence jail.
Oh, not Salem.
No, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Who do the probation officers work for?
Probation officers work for the courts.
Okay, so they're not part of the sheriff's system.
No, they actually,
I thought a lot of that was up to the probation officers to watch what you're convicted, whatever.
right. But see, that's the problem. It's not enough. Because of
Okay.
the drug problem, the opiate problem today, they just can't keep up on all of that. That's where the jails now have to start.
I was just wondering, are the probation officers not doing their job? I mean, can I be that crude to say it that way?
No, I'd say that there's so many inmates that they can't, there's not enough probation officers to handle the load.
Okay.
So they need some help.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know,
But a
we have
probation
lines of
officer is,
demarcation here.
Right, yeah.
Probation officer is a desk job,
No,
more or
well,
less.
Well, the probation officers have a certain amount of inmates that
That
they're
come to
responsible
them.
for. And they check in on them on a regular basis.
Right.
Okay, the problem is that if, let's say it's in Lawrence, well, if they get 5 or 6 probation officers and their workload is 10 to 20 inmates, but unfortunately there's 50 to 60 to 100 inmates, someone's got to pick up the slack.
yeah, well,
And I think that the sheriff's department needs to start getting involved on that part of the recovery and the aftercare.
No, just-
Overall facilities at the jail,
Yes.
care and maintenance and all of that, who does that work?
They have janitors.
They have
Yeah,
janitors?
they're not correctional officers.
Yeah.
They're just private, they're janitors that they hire.
They come in for so many hours and leave?
They work 8-hour shifts.
private
Yeah.
contractor?
Nope, they work for the sheriff's department.
Okay.
Yep, they work for the sheriff's department. They don't have anyone on the overnight shift. Primarily the first shift, and actually not maybe into the second, but not till the end of the second
Now,
shift.
at the end of the night, they're all locked up, or not to use the term
Yep.
locked up, but they're all retired to their cells?
Yes.
And that's it? So they work the days or whatever, and then at 9 o'clock at night, they go to
Correct.
So
what
you
is
have
that time?
three events coming up, one in Peabody, one in, where else?
What time they go to bed?
9 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
No TVs in the rooms?
No TVs in the rooms.
Okay. So they can't watch the great debates?
No. No, they can't.
Oh. Bill, you got something to ask
One
there?
in Beverly, one in Peabody, and one somewhere
In
else.
Methuen. It's at
Methuen.
it's at a golf course in Methuen.
Okay.
Well, now, the election is going to be in September? for
Primaries in
primary?
September, yep.
So who, do you have somebody locally that is representing
For
you?
Peabody, yes. I have someone in Peabody, someone in Salem,
You care to divulge their names, or?
Chet Zelnick in
Oh, I
in
know
Peabody.
Chet, yeah.
I have Tommy Fields in Beverly. Mm-hmm. And we're working on some people in Salem. Every day we're working on getting more people involved in
Yeah.
our campaign.
That's good.
But the right now, the hurdle are the signatures.
You want to close out with your last remarks, because we're going to be going
Okay,
off.
all I want to say is
What
that
do we got, a minute?
seeing that I've done 34 years working for the Essex County Sheriff's Department, I would be the first person that, if assuming I made sheriff, that actually worked inside the prison, understands the mindset of inmates, understands the safety that is needed to protect the inmates as well as the officers that work there. I feel as though my years in service, my last 4 years being in charge of the jail, warrants me being sheriff of Essex County.
All right, quickly, these are some of our sponsors: Conway, Kale, and Broda, Pilgrim Nursing Home, Century House, Peabody House, Rosewood, Century 21, North Shore Bank, Grayrock Associates. These are all people that take ads in our
Yep.
book here. Let's see, Luso American Credit Union.
How's the
We
billboard
thank all
working?
of these people for supporting us in our efforts. And
30 seconds, Bill.
we have a place here called Triad Shedding and Laminating Company. Okay? And our big event coming up on the 16th of March
St.
is,
Patty's
of
Day.
course, St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, yes.
You heard about the two Irishmen that went into the bar?